Welcome to the Even Better podcast, where your host, Seneca Waugh of Your Clear Next Step, brings you exciting content about making communities better by helping people get even better at work.
Well, hello, and thanks everyone for joining us today. We are so delighted to be spending this time with you. Thanks for being part of today's podcast. This is Seneca Waugh with Your Clear Next Step, and I am so excited to be here today with my friend Barb Rank. Barb and I have known each other. Our paths have crossed multiple times over the years, and recently we've discovered lots of things we have in common. I know Barb as a corporate trainer through some of the clients that I've worked with in the past, and paths have crossed at Rotary. We're both Rotarians. And Barb has a passion for helping others and a love of the Lord that she and I share. And I'm just so excited to have this opportunity to go through this podcast and hear some of the things that Barb has been talking about purpose. Barb, welcome.
Thank you so much, Seneca. It's just an honor to be here, and I'm excited to have this time to talk today.
This is so great. So there are some cool projects that you've been working on about purpose, and I am so excited about this. This is definitely near and dear to my heart as I think about why every conversation that I have with anyone about Your Clear Next Step, we're always talking about why do we exist as a company? And then I look at that as why do I exist as a person and what is my purpose? And so I'm so excited to hear these tips and these thoughts that you have around purpose and be able to share those with our listeners as well. So looking forward to hearing this. So I think one of the things that we got to start with before we get too deep into this is Barb, will you spend just a couple seconds kind of introducing yourself and purpose in general? Like, let's define it. What are we talking about here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, happy to. I can maybe start with what I have learned and discovered about what purpose is not. Sometimes it's easier to talk about what it's not and then talk about what it is. Because honestly, this didn't become clear to me until maybe the last 2-3 years. And since I've had that revelation, I just want to help others come to this definition as well. But basically, what it's not the title or the job that we have, right? The job is what we do. It's not who we are. And I've been guilty of actually crossing those streams. Got to the point where at one point in my career, like, this is who I am and this is what I do. So you'll know you're there when you start taking things personally and things start to feel like a personal attack. That's when you realize, whoops, I've gotten too far into that as my identity. That's a big one that I think all of us are at risk if we're not aware.
I'm going to interrupt you for just a second, because as I think about some of our listeners and who's out there, many of us, we really do stop and think about how much we value our roles and how much we contribute from our roles. And, I know we've got some fellow business owners listen out there, and it is so easy for us to define ourselves as business owners by the business that we're running. And so I love those words that you say, that purpose is not our current title or our current work that we do.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned role. That's another thing, that purpose is not per se the role that you take on. All of us in our family dynamics, we might be a mother or father or sister. You might take on the role of caregiver from time to time. That is a role, and that is not necessarily a purpose. And again, the lines sometimes get crossed there. I'll explain later why a role is not a purpose, but I'll continue to define a few other things of what a purpose is not. Your purpose is not your to-do list. and that's one thing where it feels really good to sit down every day and write out everything we need to do, and you get done, and at the end of the day, you feel really good, like you've accomplished something. You've accomplished tasks. You have not maybe necessarily fulfilled your purpose. So just something to keep in mind. With the big global world we have out there, and even technology and the technology we're using here, purpose is not limited by geography. Growing up in a small town, a farm girl at heart, you kind of get used to your surroundings and your environment, and you think, well, this is good. And then you get out in the world and you're like, wow, it's really such a big place. But once you find your purpose, you can do that anywhere at any time. You're not limited by geography. And finally, just a note of what it's not. A lot of people think, they hear the word purpose and they think, oh, it's this nebulous thing that's out there. And once I find it, I'm stepping into my purpose. Or on the flip side, well, what I'm doing is good enough. So I'm not unhappy. I'm not overly happy. This must be my purpose. Probably not.
Probably not.
Yeah.
I think about one of the joys that I have in life is I know that I'm supposed to be doing the things that I'm doing with, I don't know for sure. I can't wait to hear how you define purpose and learn from you in this, but I know for sure that part of what I'm supposed to be doing is the work that I'm doing. And so it makes easier to get out of bed in the morning. And I think about the friends and colleagues that I have who go, well, it's good enough. It's another day. I woke up, so I might as well do something. Oh, my heart just aches and breaks for them. So how do we define purpose and how do we find it?
Yeah. Yep. So I'm going to give you 3 points around what I would define as what purpose is. First thing is it is action oriented. So once you have a clear defining purpose, you can't help but make the next goal or take the next step. And it doesn't have to be something grand. It's just the next step forward, which is ironic because of the name of your company. I think this fits perfectly in with that. It's what's that clear next step. And really, it's action oriented because it's coming from a place of personal energy. You have tapped into your personal source of energy, and you can sustain that energy regardless of your circumstances or what's going on around you. So it's truly that internal spark that once you've connected to it, it never goes away. You can only get more of it by doing more of what you were here to do. And that goes back to the last point. Your purpose, just like your fingerprint, is unique to you. Nobody else can do what you're about to do in the way that you're going to do it, and no one can take it away from you. That then leads to then what are the actions that I need to take to step into that truth, because I've got work to do here in the time that I have.
Wow. So, two things out of what you just said that I just want to pause on. And one of them is the idea of that personal energy. And I'd love to have, maybe that's a future podcast where we can talk about energy and where that comes from. We had a chance to chat earlier today, and I know that energy is something that's super important to you. And I love the way you described that. One of the moments that I was thinking about is many of us, we talk about work discussions and productivity and things that motivate us. And motivation, I think in one of our motivating classes, we talk about sometimes the work itself is motivating. Like, I'm so excited about the thing that I'm doing right now that hours will pass and I won't have even noticed how much time passes. And I always sort of thought of that as motivation. And I wonder to the extent that, like, at those moments, is that someone tapping into perhaps getting a hint of what their purpose is?
Absolutely. I cannot remember the source of this word, but someone called it the hum. When you have tapped into your hum, that is you at the core, that's what's going to give you the most energy. And that's when you know you've stepped into your purpose.
Neat. And I love the empowerment that you've described with it's unique, that each person has a unique purpose and it's unique to them. And so my purpose is unique to me and your purpose is
Mm-hmm.
unique to you. And no one can take that away.
Mm-hmm.
An empowering thought. I think about these long, dark winters that we go through here in Iowa and, going through the doldrums, but to know that, what, no matter what, I have this unique purpose that no one can take it away and it's unique to me. And so I have ownership, I have action items that I got to do to live out that purpose.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And you'll be motivated, to your point, to do them because it gives you more energy despite the long, dark, cold winters here in Iowa.
You bet. You bet. So I probably should have teed this up at the very beginning. But as we're thinking about the topic, so the title of the topic today, we're talking about 4 ways that knowing your purpose, 4
Mm-hmm.
ways that knowing your purpose benefits you in your work
Mm-hmm.
and life.
Yep.
So we, of course, have to define the term purpose, knowing your purpose. And so I love that you've taken us through kind of what it's not and what it is. And you've shared some ideas here on specifically 4 ways that knowing your purpose is beneficial. So it benefits you in your work and in your life overall. And I am excited about these. So let's tap into the first one. The first one you shared was that one of the ways that knowing your purpose benefits you in your work and life is an increased personal energy. And I think that's where we just were for a second there. But tell us more about that. What is increased personal energy?
Mm-hmm. So as you identify your purpose, you're going to have a better awareness of what gives you energy, but also what drains your energy. And this was an important journey that I went on personally, and I've seen others go on as well, where they step into a role because they feel obligated or they feel like I need to take this on to please someone. It's not giving them energy, it's doing it out of obligation. And stepping back from that, if there is a piece of that that does give you personal energy, then let's keep doing that. But if not, where are those other things that are giving you that energy? Because those are really coming from the desires of your heart. It's not just you feel happy about it, you have to do it, or you know that this is yours to do. So once you can clearly identify why you're doing certain things and then the energy that you're getting from certain things, then you're motivated to take responsibility for making those things happen and not just reacting to life. I've been there. It's a tough place to be until you truly sit back and do that self-reflection and realize what does give you energy, and then you want more of that.
You bet. So I want to pause for a second here and think this through, because it might be easy to say, well, I can think of the work that I do that does build me up and that does light me up and that gives me that energy. But then in the reality of my daily life and in the reality of the
Mhm.
obligations that I have as a human, as
Mhm.
an employee, as a business owner, there are things that I have to do. I mean, so taking out the garbage does not light me up. Does that mean that when I find my purpose, I'm excused? I don't have to take out the garbage anymore?
I'm so glad you asked. Yeah, no, I have to pay the bills, right? We have to pay the bills. We have to take out the trash. We've got to play roles that are just part of life that we live here, especially in America. So I'm going to give you an example of my purpose. My purpose is to educate, inspire, and activate people to live their authentic purpose. I know that that is my core. So if that's my core, I can look for opportunities when I am taking out the trash to say, is there anybody that I can inspire or activate to have more energy about taking out the trash? And in addition, finding their purpose. I can at least be thinking about it on the way to the trash. That gets me motivated while I'm taking out the trash. It transcends anything you might be doing in the moment. We are going to have to do those things that take away from our energy. That's just life. But then when we're taking responsibility, we look for those things that do give us energy so that it can offset those other things that don't.
Yeah. Oh, lovely. Lovely. Okay, so one of the ways that knowing your purpose benefits your life is because it gives you energy, right? You get this personal energy, this ability to go. I know there are people who have referred to me as having enthusiastic as my default setting, right? Well,
Mm-hmm.
that's because when they catch me, when they see me, it's when I'm doing the thing that I know is part of who I'm supposed to, I mean, what I'm supposed to
Mm-hmm.
be and part of my purpose. And I know that I'm doing that. And I know that Energizer Bunny comes to mind. I get that. So if you don't catch me on one of those days, if you catch me when I'm, paying the bills or dealing with the administration that is
Mm-hmm.
associated with business ownership that doesn't lift me up, you might not refer to me as particularly enthusiastic. But I love your idea that I can be thinking about, and honestly, that this is what gets us through Invoice Mondays around our office is the reality that when we go through Invoice Mondays, we're not just invoicing people, we're empowering them to learn from the
Mm-hmm.
things that we taught. Without those Invoice Mondays, we don't get the income, and so we can't continue to teach people. And so it's enabling
Yeah.
us to continue to do that. And that's a thing that we've, even before I heard your words, that's the thing that we've talked about in our office, is that you get through the grind by knowing that it's helping us
Mm-hmm.
serve our mission.
Yeah. Yeah. That's actually a better way to say it. There will always be the tactical things, but
Yeah,
you want to align them to a strategy. And in this case, where can you align them as much as possible to your purpose?
to your
So,
purpose. Oh,
mm-hmm.
that's lovely. So you talked about a second thing. You shared in advance here a second way that knowing your purpose benefits your work and life. And the second thing you talked about there was integrity. So
Mm-hmm.
take us through that a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, first I want to start by defining what I mean by integrity. There's a few different definitions, and the one that came to mind for this conversation, integrity means completeness. That's the definition that I read that I liked.
Nice.
What does that mean? A lot of times we are running around distracted, or we're having to go from place to place, or get your kids here or finish that assignment or whatever it is. Unless we're careful, we'll just start doing more or saying yes to more or just feeling like, I guess I have to do this. You're not your best yes because you're not connected to truly who are you.
Mm,
And when you don't know who you are, you tend to try to find that in everyone else or the external factors like your job, like your title, like your roles. And then all of a sudden you realize that those are not fulfilling or they're not meeting your expectations, but you're not sure why. So for me, integrity goes back to completeness,
mhm.
and your purpose helps complete the puzzle of who you are and what your unique characteristics are that you have to bring to the world. Then you don't have to continue to seek those in others. And the best part is you know when to say no. As a woman, I'll just say I was a people pleaser. I'm a recovering people pleaser. There are times when I have certain skills that I know will help this, whatever it is. And so I kept saying yes to a lot of things that weren't truly aligned with my purpose. I would burn out over and over and could not figure out what the cycle was. It was me wanting to please more than me fulfilling my purpose. So now that I've gone through this whole activity, exercise, journey, I say no with integrity because I realize that's someone else's purpose, that's someone else's blessing, and I don't want to take that away from them.
Oh, that's really powerful, Barb. There are so many of our listeners that I know right now are just stopping, wishing like in the moment that they could just replay that again. And I invite them to stop and replay that again because so many of us have this, we are people pleasers. We have this desire to say yes or this. So you said, I can say no. And you finished it with, I can say no with integrity. And I was finishing your sentence for you and thinking about how I say no. And I say no with guilt. I don't want to say no with guilt. I can say no with integrity, with joy. So in the one piece, not selfishly, but with an awareness that if I say yes to that, it's distracting me from fulfilling my purpose.
Yeah.
But I love the way at the very end there, you shared that it's not just about me protecting and preserving and doing the things for my purpose, but it's also me not stepping on someone else's purpose. If I say yes to that thing that's not really me, I might be robbing someone else of the opportunity to fulfill their purpose.
Absolutely. And, even more so, you might be saying no to your best yes. Yeah, the more you say yes, the more you're diluting your best yes. And when you can put your energy into the best yes, they're all good, right?
Right.
What's the best yes? And then you truly hone in and you focus your energy, you take responsibility. There's a lot that goes into that.
Yeah, it's like bringing your best to work every day. The idea of your best yes, that one's going to resonate with me for a long time. Thanks, Barb.
Mhm.
So we've talked about two so far, two ways that knowing your purpose benefits you in your work and life. We talked about your increased personal energy. And we talked about integrity as in completeness. I think of the phrase structural integrity, right? It's complete, it's whole, it's consistent through and through. But you've also talked about a third one. You shared a third benefit of knowing your purpose, and you've got improved relationships there. Talk to us about that.
So improved relationships, that's one in my own personal experience where as I stepped into my purpose, I recognize that I am here to help others live their authentic purpose. I want to educate, I want to inspire, and I want to activate. My journey initially led me into working with people on the front lines and others in the human trafficking realm here in Iowa. And my why in that was I want women, boys, girls, whoever's coming out of that industry to know that they have a purpose. They're here for a reason. They're not what happened to them. They're what they're going to become a step at a time as they step into their future. That's what drew me to that, in addition just to wanting to bring light to that topic. So when it comes to improved relationships, those were people that I never otherwise would have expected to meet. I never would have thought that this topic would bring me together with people that I've come to now know as friends. It was because I was willing to take responsibility for my purpose that it led me into a bunch of other relationships that are aligned with who I am and what I'm about, as are they. Even Seneca, us having this podcast here today, our missions align really closely with wanting people to develop their best selves. I think that even the title of this podcast is why we're connecting today. It's knowing that this is the direction and the path that we're on. These relationships come together in whole different levels. A lot of energy comes through that.
Absolutely. I'm listening to you describe this and I'm putting all these pieces together and I'm thinking about, so you get improved relationships. In your case, in the example that you cited, you have relationships, unexpected relationships, perhaps new people that you've met and new encountered. And so a breadth of relationship. And then I think about, well, what are you bringing to those relationships? Well, you're bringing increased energy, right? You're not just having a relationship with them, you're having that relationship built out of your purpose, which is already energizing you and giving you the, sometimes we don't give our all to our relationships, right? We don't call people back when we should, or we don't, we disengage in the moment of the conversation. We're not as empathetic perhaps as we should be sometimes. But if you're following your purpose and you've met someone through the obedience to and the responsibility of following your purpose, now you've got the energy to really build that relationship and to maintain it. Plus, then you've got the integrity and the wholeness and the completeness. I mean, like it's all coming together, Barb. This is really beautiful.
As you discover your purpose, you're going to find others who share a similar vision. And as you do so, then they become encouragement to you, you become encouragement to them. These connections continue, and you continue to meet people through these connections, and you're actually finding yourself living your life on purpose. So what that does is it can bring more balance and especially perspective into your existing relationships. your family is still important, your friend circles are still important. When you find your purpose, it just adds that extra layer of individuals, connections, and encouragement that you're all walking that same path, but each of you are there for a different reason.
That's really, really powerful, Barb. As I listen to the words that you've shared, just know I can picture some of the listeners who are listening to this and the things that they've said to me over the past here in these short 20 minutes or so. You've shared a thing that so many of us want to know. Well, how do I say no, right? You've touched on the big, I say yes to too much. And you've touched on that word balance. Just now you brought in that idea of finding balance in our relationships. There is so much power to this idea of really understanding your purpose. So I want to get to the fourth topic here. So you had shared 4 ways that knowing your purpose benefits you in your work and life. And we talked about increased energy, and we talked about integrity, and we talked about improved relationships. But you also had meaning on here. Talk to us a little bit about that.
This kind of goes back to what you were mentioning earlier. Every day I have to take out the trash. Every day I might have to do carpool for school. I might have to plan ahead for the committees or whatever it is, the day-to-day things that unless there's a bigger perspective around that, we kind of feel like we're a gerbil in a wheel, or we might feel just that tendency to burn out and wonder, what's the reason? What's the purpose for all of this? So having a clearly defined purpose actually gives your life meaning. And I go back to, I think it was a research study, for sure it was an article, but there's this woman called Bronnie Ware, and she was a hospice nurse. She met with people in the last stages of their life, and she asked the same question to all of these individuals. And she said, what's one of your biggest regrets in life? And pretty much they all had the same answer. I wish I'd have worried less about what others thought and done more to live my own life. I don't want to live life with regret. I don't want to get to the end and wish I had gotten off the gerbil wheel or stopped reacting sooner. We can do that now. And the sooner we realize that, the longer we have to live that purpose and do more of the work that we were called here to do. So knowing your purpose gives your life more meaning, but ultimately you live life with less regret.
This is really, really inspirational, Barb. I'm so glad we've had a chance to visit about this.
Me
It
too.
leaves me hungry for more, and I'm sure it leaves our listeners hungry for more, because what you've done is you've made this compelling case for why we should all take time to understand it. And I heard you use the phrase, take responsibility for our
Mhm.
purpose and for pursuing that. You've convinced me, absolutely. If I wasn't sure before, there are 4 ways that knowing your purpose benefits your work and life. I believe it would be beneficial. So what do I do now? Is there more? Can we reach out to you? What do we do to find out? How do I find out what my purpose is? I mean, that's the next question, right? So I believe you. It's going to be good for me. What do I do now?
Yeah, no, that's great. There are definitely a lot of podcasts and articles and things that people can read. I mean, the internet's a big place and you can Google purpose, and I'm sure you'll find a lot of things. What I want to offer to your listeners and anyone is an experience. I would love to have the experience to work with anyone that wants to go on their own discovery path, either one-on-one, or we have an 8-week program that is for groups of up to 6 individuals. And through those 8 weeks, we start by exploring you and who you are beyond what we see, and you get to take your own journey. Then halfway through the curriculum, we stop and I give everyone in that session a one-on-one coaching session to really be able to process and you work through what it is that you're learning about yourself and how you respond and what gives you personal energy. And then the last few weeks, we actually build out your purpose statement. And by the end, you leave this 8-week program with an activated purpose statement that you can stand on and be confident that this is the next step in your journey.
Barb, that sounds really fantastic. And I am looking forward to seeing that play out. That is something that we are pleased to be able to offer partnership with you at some point through your Clear Next Step. So our listeners will be able to check out our website and be able to find you on the website and be able to connect with you that way and learn more about the program and through other programs, services also available at your Clear Next Step. But they'll be able to find you and reach out to you and connect with you through this program.
Yeah, I'm just honored
Man,
to be a part of it. This is
well, thank you, Barb. And so
exciting.
we've got a couple of minutes left as we're still talking. So knowing your purpose and how it has made a difference to you. So one of the things that I know about you is you're a Rotarian and that you've served in leadership roles and that you've gone on trips for Rotary. Would you share with us something that you have gained or learned or found that aligns with your own purpose in being part of Rotary?
Mhm. Rotary, the motto is service above self.
Mhm.
And what I have gained in learning my purpose is the energy that I now get in serving others. So it's definitely moved past what can I get out of this, but really where can I give back in all of this? And I will fully admit I am a farm girl, but I'm not the person that can build a house. I'm not the person that knows how to fix the plumbing if it goes wrong. I know how to talk with someone one-on-one. I speak the language of potential. So that's what I want to give back, is for someone to see themselves and their full potential and step into that. And the energy that that would give, I'm going to go crazy, but the world.
Right?
I see it, and I want to do whatever I can to give that back, whether it's Rotary, whether it's church, whether it's work, whether it's at the Fairway grocery store. That's where I want to be, and that's why I'm here. So I'm excited to have this opportunity to partner, for
Oh,
sure.
that's awesome. Thanks, Barb. So one other thing, you shared some information, and you and I have talked about it previously as well, that you have found a soft spot in your heart and have been in roles of service with regard to human trafficking.
Mhm.
If someone heard that part of this conversation or is touched by that and wants to be helpful or useful in that space as well, are there places that you would send them? Are there organizations? Are
Mhm.
there ways that they can get involved and serve in that space?
Yeah, I've had the privilege to be a part of and learn more about a ton of different organizations just here in the Des Moines area. So I would love for someone to reach out to me, and I would love to have that conversation. And depending on where they want to go, I have so much that I can point them toward. So I would just give my personal email address. I've just got a ton of connections, so they can reach out to me directly.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So one of the questions, and hopefully you've had time to think about this as well, but one of the questions that we use to end each one of our sessions is I always ask, well, what's one thing that's, because this is the Even Better podcast, right? So what's
Mhm.
making you even better right now?
Ooh. So what's making me even better right now? I would say curiosity, meaning I'm not necessarily going into things looking for it has to be this way. I am walking into experiences, I'm walking into things with my family, things at work, things personal life, just saying, I want to learn more about this and not necessarily drive the outcome. So in doing so, I've taken some pressure off myself for the expectations to be a certain way. And that truly is making me better.
Wonderful. Thank you, Barb. I appreciate that. Curiosity is a wonderful way to approach things. So often we approach things with control in mind. Curiosity sounds
There you
much more
go.
liberating.
Yes.
That's awesome. So thank you, Barb, for being here and for being part of this conversation. It has been such a joy to visit with you and to hear about these 4 ways that knowing purpose really does benefit you in work and life. Thank you for sharing these thoughts with us.
Thanks so much for having me on. It's just been a pleasure, and I've enjoyed talking with you.
We'll have another conversation, I bet you, in the future about energy. So
Mhm.
we'll see if we can focus in on that for a future podcast. In
Sounds
the
great.
meantime, as this is getting published and wrapped up today, I believe from the schedule, the official publication is February 24th. So if you're hearing this on February 24th and you happen to know Spencer Waugh, give him a shout out. It's his birthday. So say happy birthday to Spencer. And if you're hearing it after that and you just missed that, and that's all right too. It'll come around again next year. It has been a joy to be part of this conversation. Thanks, Barb, for being here. And thanks to each one of our listeners for tuning in and being part of this Even Better podcast. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for tuning in today. The Even Better podcast will be back with more content soon. But in the meantime, subscribe to our podcast or check out our website at yourclearnextstep.com for more information. See you next episode.